Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. The saddest sound in the world is not a scream or a cry or a broken heart. It's silence. The silence of a man or woman who once had a dream and let it die quietly. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt the fire? I'm talking about that inner spark, that voice that tells you, I was meant for more than this. That roaring, undeniable, untamed heat in your chest that says, I'm not done yet. Most people ignore that fire. They feel it rise, and instead of pouring fuel on it, they run for the extinguisher. They settle, they compromise, they shrink, not because they're weak, but because they think the world isn't ready for their strength. But let me tell you something that will change your life. That fire is not just for warmth, it's not just for light, it's there to forge you. You don't invest in yourself when the world claps for you. You don't start when the path is clear and the sun is shining. You do it while the fire's still burning, even if it's just a flicker, because that's the moment where most people quit. And that's the exact moment you rise. See, we live in a world that tells you to wait your turn, to play it safe, to settle down, to be realistic. Realistic never left a legacy. What builds all of that is the decision to invest in yourself when you still have the fight. Even if all you've got left is the fire in your belly and one more move to make. You've got to bet on yourself before the world sees the vision. You've got to believe in your gift before it makes sense to anyone else. That means waking up early when no one's watching. That means practicing your pitch, your art, your calling when there's no applause. That means turning down comfort so you can build character, turning off the distractions so you can hear your destiny calling. Listen to me. You think you're tired? You think it's too late? You think you missed your chance? No, you're still breathing, aren't you? Then the fire's still burning. And as long as that fire burns, you have a choice. Let me speak to the warrior in you, the part of you that's not interested in average, the part that remembers what it felt like to want more. It's still there, buried maybe, covered in bills and regret, and I'll do it next year. But it's there, and I'm here to tell you, you don't need permission to start. You need courage, you need commitment, and you need to stop romanticizing struggle and start building solutions. Invest in yourself, not someday, not when the kids are grown, not when your boss finally sees you. Now, while the fire's still burning. That means you take the course, you read the book, you get a mentor, you apply for that grant, you build the thing, you make the call, you stop waiting. Because life does not reward the hesitant, it rewards the hungry. And don't confuse busy with building. Some of you are running 100 miles per hour in the wrong direction, exhausted but not expanding, stressed but not stretching. Let me ask you something bold. Are you doing what you're called to do or what you're comfortable doing? You can be busy and broke, busy and still behind. But if you invest in yourself, not in distractions, not in drama, but in real growth, then that fire inside of you, it becomes a force no one can put out. Your discipline becomes louder than doubt. Your actions louder than anxiety. Your confidence louder than criticism. See, people will doubt you because they don't have the vision God gave you. They'll mock your progress. They'll belittle your ambition, but that's because they've silenced their own fire. Don't let someone with cold ashes tell you how to burn. You have a responsibility to that fire, to the younger version of you that still believes in miracles, to the older version of you that's depending on your current choices, to the people you haven't even met yet who need your breakthrough to believe in that. So when you're tired, invest in rest, not excuses. When you're scared, invest in movement, not avoidance. When you're doubted, invest in execution, not explanations. Because every great success story sounds impossible until it's done. When people say you've changed, you say, thank God. That was the point. You weren't born to repeat your parents' fears. You weren't born to relive your community's trauma. You weren't born to die full of potential and empty on purpose. You were born to do something that scares you and saves you. That's why investing in yourself is the most spiritual act you can do, because you're saying, I trust the vision enough to build it. Let me break this down for you. Tap. When you read that book, you are reprogramming your mind. When you hire that coach, you are speeding up your growth. When you write that song, build that business, preach that sermon, record that video, you are keeping the fire alive. And let me tell you what happens when you keep feeding the fire. It becomes contagious. Your children will catch it. Your community will feel it. Your friends will either rise with you or fall away. And either way, you'll know you're rising. But if you don't invest now, while the fire's still burning, you'll spend years explaining to yourself why you never tried. You'll tell stories about how the timing wasn't right, or I didn't want to fail, or they wouldn't understand. But deep down, you'll know the fire didn't go out. You just stopped showing up for it. Don't do that. You're too gifted to die small, too powerful to play invisible, too necessary to stay silent. You were made in greatness for greatness, through greatness. And the only thing standing between who you are and who you're becoming is the decision to invest in the version of you you haven't met yet. Don't wait until the fire becomes smoke. Do it while the voice is still whispering. Do it while the dream still hurts. Do it while the rejection still stings, because that means you're still in the ring. Let life punch you, bruise you, mock you, but don't let it make you forget who you are. You are not here to just survive. You are here to soar, and no one ever flew by accident. They made a choice to believe, to train, to build, to fail forward, to rise. So whatever the dream is, write it again. Whatever the plan is, map it again. Whatever the fear is, face it again. Whatever the fire is, feed it again. Not someday, today. Because the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more people willing to start messy, to start broke, to start scared, and stay committed long enough to become undeniable. That's what happens when you invest in yourself while the fire's still burning. You become unstoppable. So no more waiting, no more doubting, no more apologizing for wanting more. Start now, while your hands still work, while your heart still beats, while your soul still roars, while the fire's still burning. Somewhere in this world, there's a version of you that already made the hard decisions, a version that didn't wait for applause or approval, that took the risk, made the call, shut the door, and stepped into the unknown. That version isn't lucky. They're just braver, braver than your fears, braver than your critics, braver than your past. They looked at the mirror and said, if I keep betraying my own potential to keep others comfortable, I'll bury the very life I was created to live. You see, there's a difference between being liked and being respected. Liked is comfortable. Respected is earned. You earn it by doing what others won't. You earn it by showing up when you'd rather run. You earn it by telling yourself the truth, that pretending to be okay with mediocrity is emotional theft. You are stealing joy from your future self when you lie to protect your comfort today. And I don't care how smart you are, how talented, how connected. If you don't move, you will rust. A man with no direction will drown in his own confusion. A woman with no clarity will get caught building everyone else's dream and calling it duty. Don't confuse loyalty with self-neglect. Don't confuse patience with avoidance. You are not lazy. You are just spiritually undernourished. Because when you pour everything into people, jobs, expectations, and nothing into yourself, you will eventually wake up empty. And nobody claps when you crash. Nobody rescues the ones who ignored their own alarm. The world loves a comeback, but it doesn't always wait for you to recover. So while you can still move, while your legs still walk and your mind still hungers, fill your own cup, not in selfishness, but in self-respect. Because your growth is not optional. It's not a luxury. It's your responsibility. You want to inspire your kids, then stop talking about sacrifice and show them strategy. You want to shift your circle, then raise your habits, not just your hope. You want to be respected in a room, then start investing in the substance that backs your presence. This isn't about hustle culture. It's about alignment. Getting so deeply rooted in who you are and what you were born to do that distractions lose their power over you. You stop scrolling endlessly because now you're building endlessly. You stop gossiping because now you're grinding. You stop reacting to everything because now you're responding to purpose. That's the beauty of personal investment. It refines your appetite. You stop chasing applause and start chasing alignment. You stop begging for doors and start building houses. You stop asking for opportunities and start creating them. Because a person who knows their worth doesn't panic when they're alone. They don't fold when they're doubting. They don't need external validation to stay focused because they become their own confirmation. They don't chase peace. They become it. They don't wait for inspiration. They engineer it. That's what happens when you stop treating your potential like a side project. You go from surviving Monday to owning your calendar. You go from borrowing motivation to manufacturing momentum. You go from needing a push to being the one who pulls others out of the pit. But you can't get there if you keep ignoring that itch in your soul, that whisper that says you've overstayed in this season. You weren't meant to stay hidden in environments that drain you. Growth isn't just about knowledge, it's about bold action. It's waking up earlier, even when your body complains. It's saving money for that course, even when people tell you it's a waste. It's learning to walk away from people who clap for your stagnation and mock your transformation. Not everyone's gonna get it, and that's okay. You're not here to be understood by the mediocre. You're here to disrupt the pattern, to be the one in the family who breaks the cycle, to be the one in the community who lights a path, to be the one in the mirror who finally says no more waiting. And trust me, it won't be easy. You'll question yourself. You'll miss comfort. You'll outgrow places you once called home. But every time you stretch, every time you fall forward, every time you learn the hard way, you are becoming the person your future absolutely needs. And when you finally step into that moment, when everything clicks, when people ask, how did you do it? You'll smile, not because it was easy, but because you'll remember the night you almost gave up and chose to build instead. This is your wake-up call. Don't decorate the cage. Don't romanticize your excuses. Don't water dead plants hoping they'll bloom. Invest in movement. Invest in faith. Invest in the version of you that refuses to die quietly. Because once you stop negotiating with fear, once you realize your dream isn't waiting for perfection, just action, you become a problem for every limiting belief that ever dared to contain you. So whatever you're carrying, pain, doubt, fear, grief, turn it into fuel. Use it because you're not here by accident. You're not stuck. You're at the edge of breakthrough, but it requires you to jump. Not tomorrow, not when it feels safe, now. While the fire's still burning, you've seen glimpses of who you could be in the quiet moments, in the middle of the night, or when no one's around to distract you. There's a version of you that stares back from within and dares you to do something different. That version is unapologetically bold, dangerously focused, and immune to doubt. But here's the problem. Most people flirt with their future, but stay married to their fear. They know what they want, but they keep dating indecision. They talk about freedom, but won't leave their prison of habits. They admire the mountain, but never take the first step up the trail. And the longer you delay the climb, the heavier your excuses become. The truth is, your dream doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under your own hesitation. And hesitation, it's not harmless. It's a thief. It robs you of momentum. It steals your belief. It convinces you that later is safer. But later is the enemy of transformation. There is no right time. There is only your time, and it's slipping. You don't get forever to become who you were created to be. You get a window. You get an opening. And if you don't move when the light hits, it closes. Not because you're not worthy, but because you refuse to act. The greatest losses aren't found in failure. They're found in the lives never fully attempted. You will never know what could have been unless you build it. You'll never meet your fullest self by playing small. So stop asking, what if I fail? Start asking, what if I never find out? There is nothing noble about abandoning your potential. There is nothing admirable about pretending to be less than you are. You were born with raw material, not to waste, but to work. And yes, it takes sweat, it takes silence, it takes seasons where you're misunderstood, because investing in yourself means you'll outgrow your environment before your environment claps for your growth. It means walking through doors you built yourself. It means facing rooms where nobody knows your name, but showing up like they should. not with arrogance, but with clarity, because clarity doesn't shout. It simply walks in and makes everything else irrelevant. So let them laugh, let them roll their eyes, let them say you've changed. You're supposed to. Change is proof you're alive. Change is the receipt of movement. Change is what happens when you no longer accept average as your address. And here's something nobody tells you. The moment you decide to evolve, everything around you gets tested. Old friends feel threatened. Old routines scream louder. Old beliefs beg to stay. But you don't owe loyalty to what limits you. You don't need approval to step forward. You don't need a cheer squad to raise your standard. You just need a moment. This moment where you decide that your growth is non-negotiable. Because when growth becomes your identity, failure becomes your education. It's not the fall that matters. It's how fast you recalibrate. It's what you extract from the setback. It's who you become after the loss. Because resilience is not inherited, it's developed. And it only grows when you put yourself in environments that stretch, challenge, and sharpen you. You want ease? Stay the same. You want elevation? Get uncomfortable. Because comfort never rewrites history. Comfort never shifts a generation. Comfort never tells the story you were born to live. So you've got to do the hard thing while it's still hard. That's the price of power. Invest when you're still unsure. Practice when no one's clapping. Build when the tools feel foreign in your hands. Because the people who look unstoppable today once stumbled through silence with no instructions. They just didn't quit. And more than that, they didn't complain their way to greatness. They constructed it. With every choice, every commitment, every day, they got back up. And now it's your turn, not to mimic them, but to activate you. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs the original version of you, unlocked, unleashed, unfiltered. And no, it won't come cheap. You will lose people who don't understand the new language you speak. You will lose habits that no longer align with your destination. You will lose the ability to blame anything or anyone else because now you know the power was yours all along. That's what happens when you invest in yourself. You stop outsourcing your purpose. You stop blaming your background. You stop waiting for validation and start walking in conviction. And conviction is louder than doubt, louder than fear, louder than excuses. Conviction says, I may not be there yet, but I am not staying here. Conviction doesn't need guarantees, just grit. It doesn't need praise, just presence. It doesn't need perfection, just persistence. So stand up, even if your legs are shaking. Speak out, even if your voice cracks. Show up, even if nobody knows your name. Because every legend had a moment where they were overlooked. Every icon was once underestimated. Every breakthrough began with one unreasonable decision to bet on themselves anyway. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are ready, even if it doesn't feel like it. Even if you don't have the map. Even if you're still healing. Readiness isn't a feeling. It's a decision. And when you decide, everything changes. Your posture shifts. Your tone deepens. Your eyes sharpen. You stop walking like a question and start moving like an answer, because that's what you are, an answer to a need in this world that only your voice, your hands, your story can fulfill. So get up, not tomorrow, not next year, now. And you are walking around with dreams that generations before you couldn't even imagine. They fought to survive. You've been given the chance to build. But instead of building, too many sit quietly, waiting for a sign that will never come in flashing lights. The sign was always inside you. That persistent unrest, that stirring in your chest, that is your permission slip. And you don't need another one, because there will never be a moment where everything is perfect. There will never be a time when the doubts vanish completely. And there will never be a voice loud enough to outshout your own belief. That's your job, to believe louder than the noise, to create movement before clarity, to decide who you are, and then show up as that person every single day, not just when it's convenient. You want to change your life. Start honoring the visions that visit you in the quiet, those late night ideas, those goosebump moments, those flashes of who you could become. They're not fantasies, they're previews, and they won't stay if you keep ignoring them. You've got to catch them, protect them, and give them a place to grow. And that growth, it's going to require sacrifice, not just of time or money, but of identity. You got to let go of who you used to be to become who you were meant to be. You can't drag yesterday's mindset into tomorrow's miracles. You can't carry the weight of who you were and expect to run toward destiny. There's a version of you on the other side of effort, a version that doesn't flinch when challenged, that walks into rooms without shrinking, that doesn't explain their light to people addicted to the dark. That version doesn't live in the future. It lives in the decision you make right now, to do the work, to face the mirror, to choose responsibility over resentment. Because blaming the world for your limitations won't remove them. Only building will. And you build with discipline. Discipline is your proof to yourself that your future matters. It's not about motivation. It's about mastery. Mastery of your emotions, your habits, your patterns. Because if you don't master your tendencies, they'll master you. Procrastination isn't passive, it's aggressive. It kills your potential in silence. Doubt isn't harmless, it multiplies when fed. But when you invest in systems, rituals, and accountability, you no longer rely on willpower. You rely on structure, and structure will carry you on the days belief doesn't show up. So build the habits before the applause. Build the schedule before the opportunity. Build the version of yourself that doesn't break under pressure because they've already been through fire and came out forged. The world makes room for people who refuse to leave it the same. And if you want to be unforgettable, you must be undeniable, undeniable in your focus, undeniable in your consistency, undeniable in your belief that your life matters, not just for you, but for the ones coming after you. Because make no mistake, someone is watching your story. A child, a sibling, a friend, a stranger. And your choice to rise may just be the permission they need to begin. So stop thinking small. You're not building a moment, you're building a model, one that shows what's possible when someone chooses growth over comfort, faith over fear, vision over convenience. And every time you invest in learning and healing, in creating, you plant seeds in a soil that will one day bloom when you least expect it. You may not see the harvest yet, but if you stay faithful to the process, there will come a day when you look back and thank yourself for not quitting. When it was quiet, because most people quit in silence. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they mistook slow progress for failure. But slow isn't stagnant. Pain doesn't mean pause. And resistance is not rejection, it's refinement. So take the steps, even when they feel small. Small steps build stamina. Stamina builds identity. And identity builds destiny. And destiny does not arrive in lightning bolts. It shows up in layers, disguised in the decisions you make when no one's clapping. Reflected in how you show up for yourself when there's no audience to impress. That's the real test. Can you still show up with excellence when you're the only one watching? Because the fire doesn't die from lack of applause. It dies when you stop feeding it. So feed it with commitment, with curiosity, with the courage to start over as many times as necessary until you become who you were born to be. You will get tired. You will feel unseen. You will wonder if it's worth it. But in those moments, remember this. You're not doing it for attention. You're doing it for alignment. You're not trying to be impressive. You're trying to be impactful. You're not waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself, and that's more powerful than anyone else's approval. So don't shrink to fit their understanding. Don't stall because they don't. Don't stop because it hasn't happened yet. You're not late. You're just early to a life that requires a stronger version of you. One you're building brick by brick, decision by decision, day by day. So show up again tomorrow. Build again. Speak again. Write again. Stretch again. Because the real reward isn't just what you get. It's who you become. And who you're becoming is fierce, disciplined, unshakable, unstoppable. Because you invested when it was hard, when it was lonely, when it didn't make sense. You didn't wait for the fire to burn out. You threw on more wood. And because of that, you became the fire. It's not the world that's in your way. It's the comfort you've made peace with. The stories you've kept telling yourself about why you can't, why it's not time, why someone else is more qualified, but no more. From now on, your life is not a reaction, it's an intention. You don't wait to see how the day unfolds. You command the direction. You place your goals on the front line and show up like someone who's not afraid to fight for them. Because here's the truth, you will never outperform your self image. If you don't believe you deserve it, you'll sabotage it. If you don't believe you can handle it, you'll lose it. So, what's the antidote? You invest in the inner world. You strengthen the voice that lives between your ears. You upgrade your identity before you upgrade your income, your relationships, your influence. Because if you can't manage your mindset, you'll mismanage every miracle that comes to you. You think you need a breakthrough, but what you need is a blueprint, a way to show up daily, especially when it's boring. Because greatness doesn't come from excitement, it comes from consistency, consistently choosing excellence when mediocrity is easier, consistently guarding your energy from people who drain your purpose, consistently protecting your imagination from thoughts that shrink your future. You have to get so protective of your peace, your space, your vision, that anything that doesn't align with your future gets evicted without apology, because you've got things to build, people to lead, futures to design. And those things don't manifest through passivity. They show up through clarity backed by relentless action. So rewire your definition of success. It's not about flashy things. It's about becoming someone you respect, someone who follows through, someone whose word is binding, not just to others, but to themselves. That's real power, to trust yourself when the lights are off, to believe in your assignment, even when no one claps, to stay loyal to your promise, even when progress feels slow. You're not here to impress, you're here to impact, and impact takes time. It takes decisions you won't get credit for. It takes tears nobody sees. It takes being misunderstood by people too small to hold your vision, and you hold it anyway. You keep the standard high, you keep the mission clear, you keep building even when the applause goes quiet. Because those who finish strong didn't always feel strong. They just kept moving forward, one focused, intentional, disciplined step at a time. You want the breakthrough, then start doing what others only talk about. Be the one who makes the call, takes the class, skips the party, chooses the early morning grind. Not because it's trendy, but because it's transformational. You see, the difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck isn't talent, it's the threshold for discomfort. It's how willing they are to sacrifice being liked for being effective. You can't chase both at the same time, because growth will offend the complacent. It will distance you from the predictable. It will pull you into places where your old identity isn't welcome. But you go anyway. You stretch anyway. You lead anyway. Because you've seen what shrinking costs. You've lived in the shadows of your own greatness. You've tasted the bitterness of holding back. And you know now silence is not your truth. Your voice matters. Your gift matters. Your perspective is not a coincidence. It's a calling. And that calling, it's waiting on your commitment, not your perfection, not your certainty, just your decision to begin. Because every master was once a mess. Every genius was once confused. Every champion was once ignored, but they stayed the course. They got up when they had no audience. They worked when the work felt thankless. They endured seasons of stretching because they knew the reward isn't in being seen. It's in becoming someone worth seeing. And every single day, you show up for your purpose. You reinforce that you are not average. You are not background noise. You are not disposable. You are the lead character in a legacy story still being written, and the pen is in your hand. So write with urgency, speak with authority, move with purpose. Because when the day comes where your voice echoes louder than your fears, where your actions carry more weight than your excuses, where your life becomes proof that it's possible, that's the moment everything changes. Not because life got easier, but because you got strong. Not because the fire never dimmed, but because you kept it alive with every act of belief, every hour of focus, every step others weren't willing to take. And one day you'll look around and realize you became the person your younger self prayed for. You became the evidence someone else needed. You became the leader you once looked for, not by chance, but by choice, because you invested, not when it was convenient, not when it was obvious, but when it was crucial, when the fire was still burning.